Thank you so much, Prof. Good morning to everybody, and also those online, and a special thank you to Prof. Hosanna for the invitation to speak about the humans behind the data, behind the screens, behind the science. And a quick overview into my background. I like to think about myself as the poster child for the modern worker. I've had 15 job titles. I've worked across 8 industries, and 4 of those institutions have been University of Johannesburg, UP, Stellenbosch, and currently with UWC. And in all of that time, all of my jobs and my work has led me to my purpose. And I know I speak to a room of people in person and online, people of passion and singular passion. And I want to introduce you to a special student. Michael Hendricks was someone that I met at Stellenbosch University, and his story really epitomizes the first generation professional space. Can you please play the video for us?
Yesterday, he was an unknown South African student, but by last night, Michael Hendricks had become a global internet sensation. As President Obama took to the stage yesterday, one young man seemed close to exploding with excitement. The president talked of how Nelson Mandela's courage had moved the world. As he spoke, Michael Hendricks' grin was getting the world talking. You got me smiling again. Why were you smiling so much?
Barack Obama was in front of me, my hero. That is what was going through my mind.
I grew up in the Mitchell's Plain community. I grew up with my grandparents. This is my grandfather, and this is my house. This is where I grew up in.
I grew up in a small town in the Northern Cape called Pella, right on the border with Namibia. Extremely small place. I think we got electricity when I was 12. Yes, I am the first person in my family to have gone to university.
Growing up in this community, there were various challenges. It's plagued by gangsterism and drug and alcohol abuse.
He was a good boy, little bit naughty. When you grow up further, I admire him. He's the first person in our family that go to a university.
Amicus, or amici, Latin for friends. It's a group of friends of the law faculty, and it's former students and attorneys and advocates, people like myself, and they provide funding for bursaries.
Without the support of the Amicus Fund bursary, I would have been a bit less focused.
It changed me, certainly put me on a different trajectory. Try and give back a bit, inspire somebody else to also, outgrow poverty.
As a young democracy, our constitution is still very new, and there's still lots of room for development and improvement, and I want to be part of that development. If it is used correctly, it can really change the lives of millions of South Africans.
So I get very emotional when I read or when I see their video, and that's because I can't tell you today where Michael was able to, sorry. You would think that after so many years, it's easier, but it's not, because there are still students dying on our campuses every day. So I'm going to just try and read from my book what I wrote about Michael. Sorry. Then one day, thank you. Then one day, the news of another student who ran out of hope was too much to bear. Michael Hendricks was the kind of guy you'd instantly like when you met him. He had the kind of charisma that convinced the people around him that he was destined to be president one day. Standing over his coffin, I was filled with a deep sadness that we were failing our young people. Yes, they were getting the money they needed to be able to get an academic qualification that might help them unlock their potential. And yet, students were dying by suicide on campuses across the country, and people would just say, "It's so sad," and go about their day. But Michael's smile haunted me. I put a picture of us, this one, on my desk, and every day when I went to work, I wondered whether I was doing enough. Money can't buy hope, and hope was what was needed. I have to speak to you today about the people like Mikhail. You probably know people like Mikhail, and I know that as I bring up this topic, it's an uncomfortable space. We don't want to go there. But I hope that you allow me to be your guide today, because we must go there. We have to connect our head and our hearts. We have to feel what we feel, because our feelings are telling us something. I want you to understand that this generation, Gen Z, and the Alpha generation, our kids, my daughter's 3 years old, they are growing up in a world where there is no distinction between data and screens and computers. That reality is part of their reality. And we know there's positive aspects of that, many advantages, but there's also a feeling of disconnection. It's making them feel fragmented. They're trying to project an image of themselves that they think is acceptable, more than we experienced when we were growing up. And that is why we see that globally, but every 40 seconds, somebody is taking their life. In the age group 15 to 24, it is becoming the leading cause of death. So we cannot avoid this. We cannot ignore it, because it is a crisis of identity. And it's a crisis that we as adults also face at different stages of our lives. Think about the moment in your life at different stages, something horrible happened, and you felt a sense of despair. To despair means to lose hope. You couldn't think, how can I go on? You couldn't feel like you could go on. And so hope is the currency that we need to develop as we are building innovation, as we are developing solutions, as we are using technology to help us improve our lives. Because this is what happens from birth. Our head and our heart gets disconnected. When you're born, you were born into a story, a movie that's already playing. You were born into a family, an environment, a society, and you were given a script saying, this is who you are, this is who you can be. And the fight for who we really are is actually what our life is about. I agree with Aristotle, who said that educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. So I hope you're asking, Cheryl, if I'm feeling disconnected, how do I reconnect? How do I get to know who I really am? And I discovered Joseph Campbell's hero framework. Think about your favorite movie that you love to watch, your favorite book, where the ordinary person that we meet, he gets a call to adventure, and he has to go into a strange new world and overcome these enemies. And in that process, the hero is born. We were talking about a feeling of death during our PhDs. It's a similar process. Whenever we take on something that feels bigger than ourselves, whenever we say we have to go through a transition, whether we plan to or not, that's the hero's journey that's being activated. D.W. Winnicott came up with the concepts of the false self and the real self. And I want to see show of hands. Who feels like every day I am living authentically, 100% me, no shadows, no masks, nothing to hide? I don't see any hands going up. 1, great. 2, 3, 4, perfect, awesome. I'm gonna have lunch with these people. It's a process to let go of the lie of who we are told to be. I was born into an Indian family. I'm supposed to like Bollywood music. I don't. I'm supposed to like certain things. I'm supposed to be a certain way. And we have to fight that, because we're releasing our true self when we say yes to adventure. And sometimes adventure comes to us in these catalytic moments, like the day I attended Mikhail's funeral and realized that the things that are making me mad and sad, the things that are making me say, it shouldn't be this way, why did this happen? Whenever you find yourself asking those questions, Prophet Zana was saying, ask questions. Your heart is asking you the questions. Why is this happening? It shouldn't happen this way. Somebody should do something about it. You know what? That someone is likely you. You are supposed to do something about it. But it seems too big for you to do this by yourself, right? That's why you ignore it. But the hero's journey process helps you to discover your real, true purpose that makes you feel energized and excited. Think about the hero's journey, right? Star Wars, for those of us who are old enough to remember Karate Kid with Mr. Miyagi, the guide recognizes the ordinary person who does not yet believe that there's a hero inside of them. They see what the other person can't see yet. And that's what our students are hoping for us. They want us to help them see the hero inside. They want us to help them to connect to other people like them who are on a similar path. Let's take Luke Skywalker. He meets more people like him who are fighting the real enemy. When you start thinking about what you want to research, this problem that you want to solve, you will find people like you, I like to call them your tribe members, who are also trying to solve the same problems. And you realize, oh, great, I don't have to solve this problem by myself. I connect with my band of brothers and sisters and my tribe members, and we fight the enemy together. The promise of adventure is that you will always have a fight, but the other promise is that sometimes you win. Sometimes you actually have victory. Sometimes you actually complete the PhD and it's done. And you finally have that victory. Now, this is the essence of the wholeness process. This is how we reinvent ourselves. This is how we begin to iterate our own lives. How was I able to step from one career into another was to go into what I call the cave of rebirth, where you're looking at it like, oh no, it's painful. Yes, that's why people want to hide from it. It happens when we maybe leave a relationship that used to define us, or our company suddenly closes down one day. It happened to my husband. Monday morning, he'd worked there for 10 years. The CEO said, the company is now liquidated. Please leave your laptops at the door. Thank you for your service. Goodbye. True story, happened, and does happen. We cannot allow people to believe that job security is still a reality. It's a myth, it's a fairy tale. There is no job security, not even in higher education. And so how do we keep on keeping ourselves open to change and growth? This is what we have to understand. When we start living out who we really are, giving ourselves permission to be who we know we are and we can be, connect to people who are actually understanding us, who see us, who celebrate us. When we go into this cave, knowing that we have a purpose, knowing that there's people for us, we can fight, we can allow parts of our false self to fall away and die, so that new parts of ourselves can be rebirthed. I really believe that if Mikhail had more of an understanding of the process he was in, and I wish I could go back in time, but I can't, to explain this to him, to help him through that process, he would have been able to hold on just another day, just another week. And that's all we can do to help people, to say, don't give up. There's destiny in you, there's power in you, there's purpose in you. And that's how we keep transforming ourselves. Your purpose can transform your deepest pain into your greatest power. How do I know that? Because it took me 20 years, the time some of you have taken to write your PhDs, to write this book. Because I understood Mikhail's story. Like my story is echoed in so many South African stories, growing up in domestic violence. Do you know that the recent stats are 1 in 2 South African women will experience intimate partner violence before the age of 50? That's a recent research by the Lancet Psychiatry Commission on gender-based violence. Half of the women in this room have experienced it, are experiencing it, or will experience it. And then we want to know, why haven't you finished your master's yet? Why haven't you done your research yet? Because they are a whole person having a real life experience. When you understand your purpose, when you connect your head and your heart, and I've seen this in my own life, it creates an upward spiral. I'm not the Cheryl I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, because I'm constantly disrupting myself. I can understand, okay, I'm now in a stage where I'm going through a new adventure cycle, which means I have to find a guide, I have to find a tribe, I'm going to go through new fights, I'm going to fail, I'm going to go into my cave of rebirth, I'm going to have to let go of ideas of myself that are not real, and then I can rebirth myself into allowing myself to be more whole, more free, more future fit. That's really the crux and the essence of what I try to give every single young person in the groups that I work with. I think if you've been working for a few years, maybe more than 10 years, you finally realize this reality that no relationship, as wonderful as the person is ever going to make you happy. No friendship, they're also quite temporary, will ever fulfill you. Your career path is something you have to decide. It's not your manager's job or the university's fault. It's easy to blame that. But we have the right to our own lives. We have to be in the driving seat of our own lives. Even with money, we'll always need more. But if you have your purpose and you know what money is for, it's easier to create a budget. It's easier to invest. It's easier to save because you have a plan. And ultimately, the aspect of wholeness that's so important to keep ourselves together as this world is rapidly advancing is to understand that we are a three-part being: spirit, soul, and body. And your heart is at the intersection between your spirit, that part of you that leaves your body when you die, and your mind and your emotions. So how are you taking care of yourself every day? How are you connecting to what you're really feeling every day? You might be so used to pushing your heart away. Oh, don't come bother me now. I'm busy. We'll deal with this next week. And you keep pushing it down. And what happens? It finally slaps you in the face one day. And then either you have to go to the hospital because you're burnt out, or you find yourself in coping behaviors because you're not allowing your head and heart to actually be in harmony. And here's something I want to remind you about. Maybe you don't know this. Maybe it's the first time you've ever heard this, but you are not broken. I hate that society celebrates brokenness. I hate that there's songs about brokenness saying, we're just broken and broken, that's just the way we are. No, I get mad at that. Because if we feel broken, then how are we going to tell ourselves that we can come up with solutions, that we can be problem solvers? I used to want to be normal, but normal is overrated. It is an act of rebellion to live as a whole person in a broken world. Young people are looking for perfection, but what they actually need is a sense of wholeness. To be perfect is actually completeness. They want to know that I'm capable of coming up with solutions. This is a major shift for Gen Zs coming into the workplace. Our parents and grandparents were telling us, just be happy to have a job. You're paying the bills, you have a roof over your head, stop complaining. And they have that, but there's an ache in their hearts because they never grew up with security and love and connection, and so they're seeking that. And I think that's a healthy thing. They're pushing back against work environments because they're saying, I want to be able to reconnect my head and my heart. I don't want to be burnt out and stressed out. I can't give my life at this job. And I think that's fair. So how does this relate to the topic of the conference, digital skills for multidisciplinary impact? And the simple thing is this: people need to be treated as human. When you go back to your research topics, when you go back to your teams that you're collaborating with, take a moment and ask, who are the people that will be on the receiving end of this? They might know the solutions or information that is crucial aspects of what you're trying to understand. There's a deep need for connection. If you can get really good at connecting with people face to face, eye to eye, really collaborating with them cross-culturally around the world, you will be a sought-after problem solver. Why? Because you can still connect to real people. That's never going to change. And we have an imperative to actually help young people to become proactive problem solvers. I always tell young people this and they get shocked. Your job is not your work. Your job is not your work. Your job, you're also looking confused, like, tell me more, I will. Your job is a point in time where you are exchanging your professional skills and your personal skills for a specific role. Your work is what you discover as the only impact that you can make in the world around you. If you can do your work in your job, that's a very happy life. But if you can't, your heart's always seeking this thing that you know you are meant to solve. So let's stop telling young people that our degree will help you get a job, because we can't promise them that, because jobs are fluid. All these jobs are probably in your academic programs right now. But in 2 years, before they even graduate, they might not be these opportunities anymore, thanks to, for example, the ChatGPT that's been launched a few months ago. So how do we shift them to understand their skills? They've got skill sets that they can adapt and use for different industries, different jobs, different fields, but they're still solving the problems that they're passionate about. We need to get more of these people empowered. This guy is Edward Tien. He's a Princeton student, and he saw the potential issues that could come up by ChatGPT being used to submit essays at school. So within 3 days, he decided, I'm going to develop something. He used ChatGPT for this program, so he actually kind of used it against itself, called it GPT-0, and he's come up with a solution. So no one told him to do that. He just woke up and realized I can, and he did. How are we helping young people to have more autonomy, to have more permission to create, to be empowered? The main challenges that they are facing is a lack of financial literacy skills. So what do I do with my money once I have it? How do I actually deal with the mental health challenges that is not being addressed on my university campus? And where can I find these coaches and guides? Because they are desperate for them. They want people to help them in the process. I wish I could actually just share this with every university student when they come into the university campuses. This is what my career path looked like. I was thinking, how could I depict this? This is a really good picture. I started out by just getting a job. I didn't have anyone to help me with the process, and that job led to the next job, and eventually I discovered my purpose. But we aren't helping young people to see the long game. We aren't helping them to see that each job can teach you something. Each job can give you skill sets that you actually need. And when they go into the world of work and they feel like they can't get a job in the field they studied in, they feel like a failure. No one's told them that the system has changed, by the way. The story has changed. They feel like they are failures and that they are broken. You wanted to go back to that slide. Some people are taking pictures of that. This is what I always try and help young people to understand when we go into the inner quest of the self. Whatever behaviors we are struggling with is always rooted in a belief system. So when we can remember this picture and realize that, oh, I'm overeating because I'm stressed. Why am I stressed? Because I'm worried about this. Why am I worried? And you kind of go down the line. So how are we helping to solve our own problems around personal growth? We have to help them to integrate this, because this is the only way to stay future fit. We have to shift from a job focus to a skills focus. So I've had multiple skill sets that I've been able to cross-skill and upskill in the different careers that I've had. Being a university fundraiser for over 10 years has helped me to develop a business, because it's about relationship building. And I realized, wow, I was trained for 10 years to actually be a good business person. We were talking a lot about developing entrepreneurial mindsets. Young people can't go from graduation to opening a business the next day unless they've had a lot of exposure and support. They need to work in actual companies, understand business processes, be encouraged to develop entrepreneurial opportunities, and then start their businesses. And a lot of young people are doing that. They have a job, but they are also building up their side hustle, as you've heard them say. We have to keep unlearning, relearning, and unlearning again. And I want to ask you this question today. You have some time before you go back to your home. If you have a chance to go to the beach, I think this beach is safe to walk on. What do you want people to say about me when I die? I've had to let Mikhail's passing speak to me about the life that I want to live. And I honor his memory for that, because his impact that he wanted to make in the world, it might still, we don't know what could happen with that. So what is the one thing that your jobs, your interests, your personality, your dreams, your identity is telling you, you need to solve this problem? You can listen to my message today and say, Cheryl, no, I don't want to do that. I'll push it down. but it's going to be a beach ball. In 2 years, it's going to come up again. In a few months, it will come up again. Pay attention to that. Because when you find the problem that you want to solve, every job, every work opportunity is going to help you to get better at that. And I still keep this picture of Mikhail on my desk, on my bookcase in my home office, because I never want to forget him. There's a difference between working hard to prove your worth and working hard because you know your purpose. Let's help young people to know their purpose, help them to see their skills, help them to understand the hero's journey process, and then we'll empower them because they actually have amazing treasure inside of them. I think you feel with my passion that I really believe that about young people. So that's what I wanted to share today. Please reach out to me. I do have some copies of my book that I will sign for you on sale today. I have a podcast called Wholeness at Work. Please have a listen. Tell me how I can improve that. And let's keep helping young people to understand the power and passion inside of themselves. Thank you.
Colleagues, I'm not saying this, so if you want to get angry with somebody, look in that corner. Tea is still served, tea is still available, tea will be available all day, but because the session is going on so well, we respectfully ask you to remain and go and grab a cup of tea during the talks. Thank you for your cooperation. Please, Cheryl, does anybody have any? I'll take 2 questions and you can carry on at lunchtime. While waiting, I just want to make the comment that I did some research on what you call shift from job focus to expanding skill sets. The research I did, I called it job shift as opposed to, right? And well, as I learned more about it, I changed the word job shift to occupational shift, right? So, and then the motion that we are going through now, the terms we now use is upskill, de-skill, and reskill. So that in the 4IR world is what's happening. There are skills, and if you look at your own occupation over time, you'll find that many things that you used to do, you're not doing anymore. But because it's happening so slowly, you didn't notice it. But now it's happening more rapidly and becoming disruptive in our lives. Do you want to comment on that?
So I think, thank you for sharing that. The biggest aspect of that is helping people to understand that you have a foundational skill set. What you were good at, what you loved when you were in your early 20s are most likely still going to be those things. You'll just have to intensify that passion, like you were saying about the more we know, the less. What were we saying? What was your phrase with that? You learn more and more about less and less, exactly. You find your specialization in terms of that, but we also have to keep evolving and adapting, and that's why I was saying yesterday that we need to actually give alumni more opportunities for them to come back and to keep learning. So short courses, master classes, ways for them to keep their skills current in their jobs is going to be crucial as we go forward. Yes.
Thank you. What an interesting talk you just gave us there. But what I wanted to say is what's also quite concerning is that a lot of suicides are males, and we're seeing a lot of adult males committing suicide. Have you thought about extending maybe your work into the adults also that commit suicide? I understand, yes, there are a lot of Gen Zs committing suicide, but I just wanted to know if you're also looking at a broader spectrum of the population. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Well, my work extends firstly primarily to early career professionals, but it also goes into mid-career professionals as well. And I mean, I don't have all of the research around why males more than females are the ones that we're seeing the highest suicide rates. But if I think about society and how we haven't allowed men to feel, And then we wonder why there's no safe spaces for them to be able to share what is really happening. My husband is part of an international group. They meet online in the UK, and that's like 10 o'clock at night. But I encourage him to be part of that because it's just a sharing group. And they are evolving spaces where men have these opportunities to actually share and to speak. Because I think you can only bottle up so much pain for an amount of time. And also thinking about the financial pressures, absentee fathers, feeling like a failure, feeling like what is a man in the society today? I think it's many contributing factors. I don't primarily work on that, but it is a space that needs a lot more intervention, definitely.
Good morning. Thank you for your presentation. Look, I'm just looking at the issues of mental health, right? And probably some people may not be exposed, but when you drive around downtown and you just pay attention, you would notice that there's a lot of people that we call hobos that fill the streets of our towns. And you continue to wonder what happened. And what I have also noticed is the growth in young people that fill these streets, that have found the streets to be more accommodative than their homes. And quite interestingly, I have observed how eloquent they speak, which to me says they come from Model C schools or private schools. And also as a healer myself, how parents consult because their children are in the streets. And I'm not sure what happens. Is it problems at home? Is it problems in their interactions? Is it problems at school? What has died in them? So those are the questions that perhaps in our space of works, we need to continue to engage. Have we become more disconnected that people feel that they have no sense of purpose, or they have lost the spark that makes them to continue to live? But more importantly for me, ma'am, are these young people that feel the streets. And I would dare anyone in this room to take a drive, and you live your urban life and you go to the location just to drive around. You will find these people wearing, in hot days, they would put on, blankets. We call them people who have gone mad, but something drives them to that madness. And what be that thing?
So to come back to that very deep question, I think we have to first acknowledge that there is a mental health crisis, and we can't keep avoiding that. And there's people within our own circles that are struggling. And if I think about the World Health Organization report on mental health, it's millions of people around the world, and there's still stigma around going for help. You were asking the question about men who are in the higher figures of those who commit suicide. So how do we normalize going for help? If we are overweight and we want to get into shape, we go see a fitness coach, right? We go see a personal trainer. If we want to do our masters, we enroll at a place and we do that. So how do we talk about our own healing? How do we talk about our own pain? I was sharing earlier that it took me 20 years to write that book, because the things that happened to me, that happens to millions of people in this country, became what I had to get over as, oh, but you are less than because you grew up in this home, or you experienced intimate partner violence, or that you were raped, or that you were in a cult. You know, these things actually make for good reading. So I've had to own my story and realize that the things that have happened to us that we didn't choose does not have to define us. It can shape us, it can inform the work that we do, but it does not have to define us. So it's that courage that we all need to take ownership of our story and say, here are the not so great parts of my story that I didn't like, but I have the pen to rewrite my story. So how are we helping each other to be a safe space for someone to say, this has happened, but I want to move beyond that. So creating that safe space, being a safe person, owning our stories, and realizing I don't have to just survive, I can thrive. And that thriving is where our power is. You had a comment you wanted to make.